Hello and welcome to a game between DarKFoRcE and NarutO. DarKFoRcE is going to be playing as the blue Zerg player at the 12 o'clock position, and NarutO is going to be playing as the green Terran player at the 6 o'clock position. The map is going to be Lost Temple, and I don't know if you guys remember that I mentioned a game called GoldenEye 007 on the Wii. It is kind of a remake or a newer version of the GoldenEye 007 on the N64. It was really fun shooter, but the cool thing about it is that you get to point your Wiimote, I think that's what it's called, at the screen to shoot each other. One of the problems with that control is that sometimes it's overly sensitive, even though you could adjust it in the options. But when you hold down the zoom in button before you take that final shot at your opponent, if you happen to let go by accident as you're making these tiny adjustments to your game and your aim, you will start spinning around in circles. So can you imagine a game with 4 players, all of them spinning 360 degrees around and around when they're trying to shoot each other? That is kind of hilarious. And we do see DarKFoRcE has scouted both the 9 and the 3 o'clock position, but he has not found his opponent, and he does put down a hatchery, probably because of that, as well as a spawning pool. Zerg really do favor the early expansion, getting the hatchery before the spawning pool, if he's unable to find his opponent at the closer positions, as they are spawning at the farthest possible location. We do see one SCV is going to begin his scouting duties, as this Overlord is probably going to move into position on the high ground over here. Yes, it is, as it is a really good idea because it does allow you vision of your opponent's bottom part of the choke point around this place, and also lets you know when they're going to be expanding to the natural expansion, as the spawning pool is going to be finishing relatively soon. The extractor, as well as a second refinery, is going to be on the way for NarutO, so this might signal an early tech to either Thor's tanks or Banshees, because usually it's not that usual to get the double gas, and he should probably put a third SCV in here, as he only has 2 SCVs in there at the moment. We do see one Marine has pushed that one drone away from his scouting duties, as the SCV is going to be making his way into the base of the Zerg. He is met with 2 Zerglings right away, and he is making 2 Queens at the moment. If we take a look at the unit counting station, we do see 18 versus 19 collectors, and there's only 2 Zerglings on the map right now, and we see a couple of Marines moving out to the middle, probably trying to deter that early pressure from the Zerg. That is not currently coming, as the Zerg player has put down a spine crawler. A spine crawler, I think, is a little bit more important on this map than on other maps, even though I would always suggest you to put down some spine crawlers around your base. The reason being is, if your opponent drops at the high ground, the spine crawler is a really cheap and effective structure to defend against it, especially because you can move them to the side over here so that they would have a shot at the high ground. In order to get vision of the high ground, you can always float an Overlord to this side to get that vision. And we can see this Zergling is not being too careful, as when you're scouting the opponent's base or the opponent's choke, you should always go around the edges of the map around here. You can set a whole bunch of rally points by using shift click, and you might even want to hide some down here to see when they're expanding if you don't happen to have the Overlord over there. Metabolic boost is currently being researched. It is about 70-80% done at the moment, and we see that the Terran player does have double gas, and we take a look at the income. He does have a comparable income because he does have those mules on the minerals, but he still is about 200 behind on a regular basis. And we do see DarKFoRcE has not yet gotten his second gas just yet, and it looks like he still only has 2 on gas. I don't know if this is on purpose or by accident. We will see how the game unfolds to see if he needs that extra mineral boost, as we do see there is going to be one medevac coming out along with one Thor. Thors are really cool because they do allow you to take down the opponent's base, and this is really good placement of these Zerglings, as there's an SCV coming around the edge, it looks like. Ooh, these Zerglings do get closer, but he wants to let his SCV out to go and scout or possibly bait the Zerglings into attacking him. That is pretty cool tactic there. And if we take a look at the creep spreading pattern, the first creep was over here, the second one was over here. The importance of this is not only does it allow you to spread your creep outside of your base, it sort of moves the creep inside your base a little bit, making it a little bit easier for you to close the gap between your main as well as your expansion. And we do see 3 queens for DarKFoRcE, as that number of queens will allow you to spread your creep relatively quickly And we do see one command center going down after the 1-1 and the 1 build at the moment. We do see one medevac with one Thor coming to the side of the natural expansion of DarKFoRcE, as DarKFoRcE is putting down a second Spinecrawler. A very, very good idea. I believe the medevac flew around the vision, so I don't think DarKFoRcE seen this drop coming just yet, as he does not have an Overlord at the high ground. But as soon as that Thor is dropped, he will shoot at the Overlord, and that will alert his opponent to the presence of the Thor on the side. And if you move the Thor right here, that would be a perfect position against the hatchery over here. And it's pretty difficult for the Zerg to deal with it, as the Zerg is moving some of the roaches closer. But the reason he's moving the roaches closer is not because he really wants to hit the Thor at the moment. He really wants to give him some cover time for these spine crawlers to move in closer. And of course, these queens can transfuse on the spine crawler, as we do see a couple of upgrades being used for the Glitter Constitution, as well as some of the Overlord transport and movement speed upgrades. He has taken down one spine crawler, and he's working his way onto these Overlords. He does have this unit on hold position, and he is moving a little bit too close to the spine crawlers. He does pick it up last second, does prevent it from going down. It's all red, but it's not yet dead. Speaking of that, the series The Walking Dead is a pretty awesome series. It is a show about zombies and living after a horrific accident on the face of the earth. It's a really cool series because they have only 6 episodes for the first season, and because the response for the first season, they will be having a second season. Yay, I really love that show. And we do see a couple of Marauders coming out, as I think NarutO is going to decide to switch out of it. He does have 3 barracks, all with the tech lab, with the STEM, as well as the concussive shell research. And he probably is thinking about getting that expansion relatively soon, as he's upgrading this into the orbital command. A couple of more roaches coming out along the way, and DarKFoRcE is going to be grabbing his 3rd as well as his 4th gas, it looks like. And if we take a look at inside the base of NarutO, he still only has 2 SCVs on this gas line. I think it might be a mistake, but at the same time, he probably wants a stronger economy to compete against the Zerg player, but I don't know if that is the way to do it. A Spire is going down at the moment for DarKFoRcE, as he's also getting a couple of more roaches, and those Zerglings are working on the side. Disruptible Rock going to be opening that 3rd expansion up pretty soon, and we do see one very useful use of this Zergling, as it does have the 2 rally points set for the natural expansion as well as the closest main base to his opponent, NarutO. NarutO will be moving out here with a couple of medevacs and some Marauders, submarines, and 2 Thors to his natural expansion to guard it. And he will be pushing that Overlord away a little bit, but the Overlord does have speed, so it's relatively easy for him to move away. We do see about 9 SCVs coming out with this push. I don't know if he wants to push at this point, because he is a little bit behind in economy, so if this push were to fail, it would be really difficult for him to catch up. He does have 4 medevacs, and those medevacs have a lot of energy. If we take a look at the units right now, we see a handful of Marines and Marauders versus a rather large Zergling and Roach army, and the Zergling and Roach are going to come in here, and they're going to start pounding on these forces. The Thors are still alive, SCVs are repairing them, but the infantry have all but fell, and one Thor is about to go down. Wow, that was really, really fast. Those Roaches do a ton of damage to the Thors, and the SCVs were not able to repair it fast enough. Both players have taken a lot of hits, but I think that exchange, the Zerg player did come ahead, even though they were exchanging about even number of shots. The Zerg player does have a little bit more income at the moment. He does have double the gas, and NarutO forgot to set the rally point for his command center. That happens to me a lot as well when I play the Terran race, because sometimes you just forget after you land that you still have to set the rally point, and he does take down Queen, does scan once again. There is an oversee there, so that you will be able to prevent your opponent from getting some cloak units in to harass your main army. That's always a good idea, putting an overseer where your units are clumping up. And I think this Zergling is still making his rounds between those 2 bases, bouncing around, and he will be getting his 3rd expansion. The 2nd base will be coming up very, very shortly, as he is going to be getting a simultaneous hatchery inside his base. It's always a good idea, since you're ahead of your opponent, to get additional bases. And the Zergling might be able to spot the 2 medevacs for DarKFoRcE. We'll see if he's able to spot it right here. He does see the 2 medevacs coming his way, so this Zergling serving a really, really good purpose. And I think at this point he might be moving back into his base. He also has additional overlords positioned all around the map, so he will see this drop coming a mile away. And as this drop is going to be landing, Centrifuge Hook is about to be complete, and there's nothing to shoot these mulas, so he will be able to take down these medevacs no problem. And some of the Zerglings are going to be working on these Marauders. Marauders are not tremendously great against a couple of Zerglings because they require a lot of shots, and those Marauders are going to be going down. What I mean is the Zerglings attack relatively fast, whereas Marauders attack relatively slow, and their shots are really powerful, but if against a lot of Zerglings, it would be a really difficult time for them to play with. Some mulas hang out on the side as Zerg is cementing his lead, grabbing the double gas. Once again, the income does show he does have about a 100% lead in terms of gas and about a 50% lead in terms of minerals, and he's going to be coming around here to do some harassment as the Terran player is trying to figure out what he needs to do to get back into the game. He is building more and more barracks. He will have, it looks like, 8 barracks, and he's coming in here to pick off some of these not so ready Marines and Marauders, and this medevac is very, very close to death. I think he could come back and try to take it down, but he will be taking down the SCVs. Taking down the SCVs, delaying the production, forcing your enemy to pull additional SCV to rebuild, forcing additional micro on your opponent, and it looks like his opponent will be canceling. NarutO will be canceling the barracks. So he's only going to have 7, it looks like. Another hatchery is going to be going up on the side over here as these forces are going to be approaching 200 relatively soon. He does have 150 at the moment, and a couple of mutalisks will be joining his main mutalisks force out here in the open. A lot of turrets are going to be put up in a defensive position as the Terran player is trying to cement his first expansion, whereas the Zerg player is going to have additional 2 expansions, one at the gold, one at the 9 o'clock position, and these mutalisks looks like they're just going to be patrolling, making sure there's no drops coming. Terran drops are one of the most deadly drops because they can drop a lot of Marauders, and Marines with them can really take down a hatchery really, really quickly. And another base is going to be going up for DarKFoRcE at the moment. I think DarKFoRcE is waiting for his upgrades to finish, as he does have, it looks like, 1-0 and 1-1 for his upgrades for his units. He does have 1-1 missile and 0-1, not 1-0 for his melee. And I think NarutO might be thinking about moving out here, but I think he should really stay in his base and try to at least get his second base up and running before he starts pushing out, because even though the Zerg does have 2 extra bases, these bases aren't really being used for mining at the moment, as this gold is not really completely saturated, as he does not have enough drones online. He has a ton of drones over here and over here as well. This base is a little bit too saturated, but that's quite alright, as there's a lot of banelings being morphed in at the moment. The armies count at 174 to 126. It's approaching that part of the game where the Zerg player has to be careful what kind of units he makes, because if he makes too much of a unit that he does not need and the turret has just the right amount of units, it could be really disastrous. We do see a couple of overlords being loaded with Zerglings. I think this is a fake drop. This is a great way to get your opponent to push out at you, and we will see that DarKFoRcE will be dropping a couple of Zerglings, a lot of Zerglings, not a couple of Zerglings, into the base, and some of the SCVs will go down. The SCVs are running for it, and at the same time, NarutO is going to push out. I think this is exactly what DarKFoRcE wanted. NarutO is going to be pushing out against a rather large Zerg army force. I think he thinks the Zerg army is in his base, but that's not actually true. There's only... Ooh, and there is blood and goo everywhere. So much green, so much destruction, and NarutO GG's out of the game. That is an awesome game, awesome use of the drops. Hope you guys enjoy that, and this is GGYourFace. If you like what you see, please do subscribe, and also follow me on Twitter so you can see what games are going to be coming out next. Thanks for listening. See you at the next game.